Sammie. Come here, Sammie. Are you done? Not done. Okay. Do you want to watch me film? Is that why you're here? Come on. You obviously wanted to be heard. Say hi. Hi to the people. Yeah, hi. Okay, that's enough. Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. Thank you all so much for tuning in today. And today we're going to be continuing our Starbucks pod taste test series, not Virtual pod. We're going into the original line today. I know I've been focused a lot on the Virtual line and doing the big 8-ounce cups. Today we're going to be trying some of the espresso shots from the original line. Now before we get into this video, I did want to preface it by saying that I have already tried the Starbucks Original Line Blonde Roast pod as well as their Espresso Roast, and I'm just going to come out plain and say it that I did really like both of those pods. I think that the Blonde Roasted pod is definitely more of my favorite of the two, and I would highly recommend it if you're just at the grocery store and really wanting a blonde latte in the future and want to bring it home. I do think the Espresso Roast is a little bit more on the Ale Cafe level where it's very, very intense, and so it's really good in like ice white mochas and such. And so I would recommend those two pods, maybe for different reasons, but I would recommend them. But with all that being said, we will be taste testing these 3 pods today. We'll be taste testing the Pike Place Lungo, and of course, their 2 new flavors, the caramel and the vanilla, or the creamy vanilla in the original line, and the smooth caramel in the original line. So I say we get into it, starting with the vanilla one. Okay, first and foremost, the crema on this pod is absolutely yummy. It looks great. And the aromatics, I think, are slightly less than the 8-ounce version of the creamy vanilla pod. So we'll see how that impacts the flavor. But generally, again, these come in boxes of 10, unlike the 8-ounce pods that come in 8. And it looks like it's supposed to be very similar to the 8-ounce pod in that it is an intensity 5. So not super intense. Very much a blonde roasted pod, and it's supposed to have sweet vanilla and shortbread notes. That's interesting, and I'm excited to try it. Let's give it a taste. So surprisingly, I actually think this really tastes like vanilla, and I think that in addition to sweet vanilla, there's like a tinge of like fruitiness and acidity that kind of leaves you wanting more of that sweetness, and so you keep going in to get the sweet vanilla taste only to be hit with a little bit more like fruitiness and such. Almost like how you're tasting something salty and sweet, that saltiness kind of like makes it worth coming back for the sweetness because it just brings it out a little bit more. I really like what they did with it, and honestly, I probably would buy this again, to be quite frank. I don't think it's super intense, which I would hope not because it is a blonde roasted espresso, but it's not like super plain or anything like that that I'm just like, what even is this flavor type of thing. So I would actually rate this an 8 out of 10. I like it. I probably will buy it again depending on the price of where it's at, and we'll get into the price at the end of this video. But I do think it's worth buying and giving a try. Okay, let's move on to the smooth caramel pod. Again, beautiful, scrumdiddlyumptious crema. So excited to try it. In terms of the smell, it oddly smells very much like the creamy vanilla, and in looking at the box, I think I can figure why. It does say that the notes are buttery caramel and vanilla notes, and the intensity is the exact same as a creamy vanilla pod at an intensity 5. So I guarantee there's going to be some similarities. Also, vanilla and caramel are very like, I think, subtle taste sometimes, so we'll see how much that similarity impacts the flavor. So let's give it a try. Okay, so in tasting this, I'm not getting a whole lot of vanilla caramel, most importantly, or that intensity like the creamy vanilla brought in the very beginning. So with that being said, I think it's just a very plain, kind of boring pod, in my opinion. I don't think there's a whole lot to it. There's not a whole lot of complexity. I guess it's a smidge sweet in the very beginning, and it tries to hit you like the creamy vanilla pod in the back, kind of like what I was talking about with that very pungent taste, but there's not a whole lot there to it. I'm not wanting to come back for more in any shape or form, so I think overall I would probably rate this a like 6.5 out of 10. It didn't blow my socks off or anything like that, and I probably wouldn't buy it again, but it was nice to try. Now, in doing this taste test, I also realized that they recommend both of these, the vanilla and the caramel pod, in a ristretto form. So I'm gonna go and try both of those on camera for y'all in the same way as a ristretto. Plot twist, we're doing 2 taste tests of the same pod, but I did want to see how it would be in a ristretto form because that's how they recommend it. So let's get to it. Okay, take 2 of the creamy vanilla pod in the ristretto format. Love that, love that. Always good to read directions, am I right, kids? So let's give this a try. I know in terms of aromatics, I'm not really smelling a whole lot of vanilla like I was when I brewed it with the espresso. Honestly, I don't know if that has to do with the pod itself or if putting it in a ristretto, like taking out some of the water, does impact it, which I would imagine it does. But overall, that is just my observation so far. Okay, so weirdly enough, I actually recommend this in the espresso form. I think that this is just, when you brew it on the ristretto form, I think some of the sweetness goes away, and even some of the intensity, like it's kind of, the intensity is more prominent at the very beginning than it was with the espresso, but it kind of fades out very fast rather than keeps you coming back, you know what I mean? So I don't know what they're talking about. I would recommend it on the espresso form, but that's just me. Not that my opinion matters, but I do think I like at least the creamy vanilla pod in a regular espresso setting when brewing. So that is my personal opinion. Take that as you will. But let's try the smooth caramel pod and see if that changes it. Okay, smooth caramel part 2, ristretto setting. I'm gonna be honest, again, aromatics aren't really there for me like they were with the last espresso setting brew. So let's give it a try.
This is nasty.
I think that this is very, like, you know how what I said about it being not intense as the espresso setting? This is now very intense in the ristretto setting, so take that as you will. If you want a little bit more of a kick to your espresso shots, to this one specifically, maybe brew it on a ristretto setting. Overall, I stand by my original ratings for the ristretto version of these pods too. I think, you know, I do like that it gives it a little bit more complexity, so maybe I would brew the caramel pod on a ristretto setting sometimes, but I don't know. I think that they should be on espresso setting. I mean, am I reading this wrong? They have the ristretto thing lit up on the box here in white, and they have the Lungo of that in white on the Pike Place Lungo pod. So I'm assuming that's how they recommend it if it's white. So yeah, just very interesting all around. I think I'm gonna stick to brewing them on the espresso setting, but that's just me. Okay, now that train wreck is over, let's do the Pike Place pod in the Lungo form. Again, don't really have a whole lot of hope for Lungos a lot of the time, but I think that this will be good. And it might even taste a lot like the Pike Place that we tried in the last video, the 8-ounce version. And I wasn't like extremely disappointed by that. And I do like a good medium roasted cup. So let's give it a try. Okay, beautiful crema, y'all. So just right off the bat, the aromatics are not really screaming chocolate. They're screaming more like earthy, a tinge of burntness, but more of the nutty notes like they were talking about, the toasted nut notes that's supposed to be in this pod. Again, very medium roast pod, medium intensity at a intensity 7. So let's get into it. Okay, I'm gonna be honest with you. This tastes more burnt than the 8-ounce pod, at least from what I recall from it. I don't know, y'all. I don't really like this. I think it's a little bit too earthy, like dirt tasting for me. And I don't know, like I heard some people say that they don't really like the Pike Place in the third-party line in Starbucks rather than the actual Starbucks Pike Place. they prefer the actual Starbucks and can like taste the difference. And honestly, I can taste that here. I really don't like it. I'm gonna label this like a 4 out of 10. I think I like the 8-ounce version of this a little bit more. When you actually taste it, it doesn't really, like once you get back past the bitterness or like the burnt taste of it, it tastes very like watered down, much like a Lungo does, and just in general like dirt. So again, not really a big Lungo gal. Maybe y'all can give me some recipe ideas for this because I don't really like it. Yeah, I don't really like it. So that's my opinion of it. Let me know what you think. But in terms of the showdown between these 3 pods and their 8-ounce counterparts, definitely prefer the 8-ounce in the Pike place. I prefer the espresso in the creamy vanilla. I think there's a little bit more complexity. And in general, I think I would go for like the golden caramel pod in the 8-ounce for Nespresso if I wanted a more caramelly pod, surprisingly. And you guys know I wasn't like crazy about the golden caramel 8-ounce pod when I reviewed it a few weeks back, but I definitely think it tastes a little bit better than the smooth caramel pod in the Starbucks line. So take that as you will. Now that we're done with the taste test portion of these pods, let's talk a little bit about price, okay? Because in this economy, woof. All I'm gonna say is I don't really enjoy spending a whole lot on the pods that I buy, especially because I make it at home. If I'm gonna spend a bunch of money on pods or on coffee in general, I might as well just have somebody make it for me, okay? At the nearest Starbucks or the nearest Dunkin' or the nearest coffee shop in general. So with that being said, I did evaluate the price of each of these pods, and at least where I'm at in Baltimore, Maryland, these pods at my nearest grocery stores like Target, Harris Teeter, go roughly for about $9.79 all the way to $9.99. With that being said, I don't think that that's bad, but when you put it in the perspective of what pods you can get at the Nespresso store or, you know, their online store for $8 a sleeve, having 10 pods, I do think much like the 8-ounce version of these pods that the price is not really worth it and you're just kind of paying for the Starbucks name of it all. If you do happen to really like these pods, like there have been a couple that I've tried, as you guys know, that I really liked and would buy again because, you know, maybe Nespresso doesn't have an exact version of it. But overall, I think you can get pretty good comparisons, or as I say, dupes of these pods in the Nespresso version of them. Like, for example, there's plenty of blonde roasted pods in the line that cost maybe like $8 to $9, and they're good and they'll get the job done. So in my opinion, unless you're like die hard a Pike Place Lungo type of person, I don't think you necessarily need to spend $9.79 or even $10 on a sleeve when you can get that from Nespresso and have it shipped right to you for sometimes even free if you qualify and have enough pods in the long run. Same thing with Amazon. If you really enjoy these pods, maybe buy them in bulk so they're a little bit cheaper. But overall, I think I'm going to stick to Nespresso pods after this. Now, there are 3 other Originalline pods, I believe, like Columbia and some other Lungos that Starbucks offers in the Originalline that kind of go off of the 8-ounce pods that we tried last week. But I will say I haven't been able to find any of them at my local grocery store, and I really don't want to pay for a bunch of them in bulk on Amazon like they offer them in. And so with that being said, until I can get my hands on those like individual ones like Columbia, I think they have a Cafe Verona and stuff in a Lungo or in an espresso form for the Originalline. I think I'm going to wait on those to taste test those until I can get all of them. But in the meantime, we will be transitioning to more fall content. So I did get some pumpkin spice capsules that we're going to be trying, not only from Nespresso, but even from third-party brands like Target and such. So we'll do a pumpkin spice capsule throwdown, okay? And we'll do some more general fall flavor throwdowns, fall haul, stuff like that. So stay tuned for the next couple of weeks when I have those videos out. And as always, I thank you all so much for staying tuned with the channel and just in general showing your support by liking this video, subscribing to the channel, or just leaving a loving comment down below of the video, either about the pods that we tried today, just in general about me, or if you want to talk about any recipes that you guys have found work really well with these pods, I would definitely love to hear it and give you guys credit for it if I replicate it on my TikTok. So yeah, thank you guys so much for tuning in, and I will see you guys on the flip side. Bye.